It's time now for Media Watch, and I'm joined here in the studio by Deeptika Laurent. Hi there, Deepti. You've got all the latest on what's buzzing online for us, and we're going to start with the election of a new Prime Minister in New Zealand in the form of Jacinda Ardern, who's the youngest woman Prime Minister the country's ever known.
That's right, and the youngest Prime Minister all round in the country. The Labour Party leader and now Prime Minister of New Zealand has had a sudden rise to power, a sudden star. That's what the New York Times says. She was actually only named leader of the party 3 months ago, and it was sort of a huge gamble to see if she could sort of spice up the election, and it's clearly paid off because she's only 37. The New York Times explains that she has a penchant for DJing and apparently installing her own toilet, according to the paper, which is a sort of weird detail to add, much to the dismay of the country's plumbers. Ardern has already outlined her priorities. She says she wants to tackle climate change, poverty, and fight for women. She also wants to hold a referendum within the next 3 years on legalizing cannabis. Now, what's interesting is it's really, her election is nothing new in what's been a year of political upsets and political facelifts, if we can say. She joins a list of 12 leaders who are currently 12 leaders around the world who are under 40, including 31-year-old Sebastian Kurz from Austria. You have Leo Varadkar, who's 38, the leader of Ireland, who are both elected this year. Also, Emmanuel Macron, who's going to be 40 and actually will be towards the older side of this list. She also joins another esteemed list. She's part of the 7% of women in power. 13 women leaders around the world, including Bangladesh, Chile, Norway, of course, Germany's Angela Merkel and Theresa May from the UK.
Okay, so 7% of the world's leaders are women, and women and violence towards women, in particular sexual harassment, has been a very big theme this week. And of course, there's been a huge backlash to some pretty alarming numbers that have been coming out.
Well, we saw the Twitter backlash, the social media backlash, which I'll get to in a minute, but we've also seen more and more women pretty much every day coming forward to say they were also harassed or abused allegedly by Harvey Weinstein. Now, the latest actress to add her name to that sad list is Lupita Nyong'o. She's an Oscar award-winning actress, and her account, it's an op-ed in the New York Times. It's very harrowing because basically it gives a very good rebuttal to those who criticize women for not having spoken out earlier, because it really gives us a perspective of how hard it was for women to speak out. For instance, she says that Weinstein shows very predator-like behavior when they're alone. For instance, when they were alone, he asked her to massage him. When they were having lunch together, he ordered her an alcoholic drink, even though she explicitly said she didn't want to. And as Slate has really analyzed this article, and they say even when she resisted his advances, he kept going on. And that's what a lot of the women who've accused him of sexual harassment or abuse say. He lulled her into a false sense of security by being charming and funny in social situations, and then being a predator, showing predator-like behavior when they were alone.
Okay. And of course, two hashtags have gone absolutely viral, being used so that women can come forward and share their experiences.
Well, around the world, we saw Me Too, hashtag Me Too, which really went viral. And here in France, there was hashtag Balance ton porc, which means squeal on the pig, also encouraging women to speak out about their experiences. And they did go viral for good reason, because the Huffington Post explains that 63% of women under 35 have been victims of sexual harassment or abuse. And perhaps in light of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, 91% of men and women in France now consider this, the topic of sexual abuse and harassment, to be an important national topic that needs to be addressed. Now, there's been a multitude of analysis on how beneficial it is to have this Twitter movement that's sort of keeping this issue still relevant in the press. And there's an interesting article from The Verge, a website, which says, okay, the story was still broken by the New York Times, but Twitter has helped keep it alive, and they've really been at the forefront in giving a platform to women to express their anger, because they've been so silenced for so long.
Okay, and of course that Twitter campaign has had a very far-reaching impact, hasn't it?
That's right, very far-reaching, because there's an article from All Africa which says that now in Africa the backlash has prompted women to open up about their own experiences, albeit on a limited scale, because one woman says that, for instance, in Nigeria, sexual violence is so widespread and accepted that it's practically expected. But on social media, we're seeing that women are starting to use this movement, at least to share their own experiences of sexual harassment. And according to a World Bank report last year, 1 in 2 women in Africa say they accept domestic violence, and about 1 in 3 have suffered abuse.
Okay, and just lastly, going from gender inequality to racial inequality, Oxford and Cambridge universities are facing allegations that they're not admitting black students. What's this about?
Well, this is so prevalent that The Guardian says they've been accused of social apartheid. 10 out of 32 Oxford colleges didn't award a spot to a black British student in 2015. Similar data from Cambridge as well, also from the same year. And it's not just race, it's also social status, because around 80% of students admitted have white-collar parents. And on Twitter, we're seeing really differing points of view. This user says, if your house has more widescreen TVs than books in it, don't plan on sending your kids to Oxbridge. But on the other side, there is one Twitter user who said he was the university's first black student union president, and he said he loved the place. It may have its problems, but it's not institutionally racist.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for today's edition of Media Watch. Diptyque Laurent, thanks again.